Boys, we are in the industry of making people happy.
Yeah.
That's what we do, right? So it brings me immense joy when I'm running around the restaurant all busy and a guest stops me and they say, hey, listen, this cocktail right here sounds amazing. But can I do it with Grey Goose instead of Tito's? So for that moment where my brain goes is to think, right, so you want me to replace one neutral spirit with another neutral spirit in a drink that's going to have some kind of cordial or a liqueur, herbs, fruit, sugar, citrus, and probably like a floral garnish, and you're going to be able to tell the difference. But then I snap back, and I say to them, I go, of course, that's what I'm here for. And then I walk away from them, and I ring in the drink with no modifications at all, right? Because who gives a shit? Then the drink comes to the... You going to be all right? Go ahead. Their drink comes to their table, and I always give them the 2 thumbs up. You good? And they always say, oh, I love this. Why do you do that? Because you're not a fucking master sommelier, dude. And even if you were, it'd be impossible to tell the difference between those 2 spirits and a cocktail with so much shit in it. So if you really want to appreciate a spirit, if you're really, really all adamant about having only one kind of alcohol because you prefer it over others, then do it on the rocks or do it neat and sip it. And I'd be happy to bring you anything you wanted, right? But unless that's the vibe you're going for, please stop wasting our fucking time. Adrian, start it up.
Welcome to the Fancy Bread Podcast, where we talk all things restaurants. I'm one of your hosts, Adrian.
I'm your other host, Ed.
And today we have a special guest, Chef Pedro Mederos in the house. Chef here is one of my personal favorite chefs, and he's got a very interesting story that I hope that it inspires you as well.
Right.
For all of us that are out there thinking, do I have what it takes? Am I ready to start my own thing or to venture into a new business idea? Well, Chef here, he crossed that line. He went around, worked in different places, learned from the masters, and then ended up making his own business. And we want to talk about how he got about it. What were those very important points throughout his story that made him do that? And where is he now? And where is he going in the future?
A lot of people want to open a restaurant. A lot of people want to be the chef, right? We want to know what some of the scary things were. What are some of the things that really, really put some pressure on you? Decisions that you made that really, really, came to bite you in the ass. Other things that you did that just made you super proud and defining moments in your still, young career, et cetera, et cetera. But before we get into all that shit, you went to go eat where he works, where he was the chef.
Correct.
And you cried when you ate at his restaurant.
I cried the first time.
Let's talk about that shit before we get into all the other stuff. I want to hear about that.
Let's clarify the record. You've
Please,
cried
go ahead.
multiple times at the restaurant. If he said once, he's fucking lying. You've cried nearly almost every time, and over the same.
You didn't
dish.
tell me that.
Over the same
Let
dish.
me. That's his perception of reality. Let him be.
That's my perception of reality, motherfucker. I watched it happen, and no one told me hey, dude, some guy's crying at seat 4. No. I'm actually standing 3 feet away from you, watching the tears run down your face. It's a beautiful thing. I'm happy that the food moves you that way, right? That's the goal at the end of the day, is to move people with your food and your art.
Yeah.
But don't sell it short.
Special. Yeah.
It's okay to cry.
I don't know, somewhere around here, I'll put a picture of me shedding a tear. Because I do have a video.
You do?
I do have a video of me that I sent it to him saying, yo, you got to come. This is fantastic. Look at this. My eyes were so I'll put it around here somewhere so people can see that picture.
You're adorable, bro.
It's beautiful.
You're adorable.
You said that before in one of the episodes when sometimes food transports you somewhere else. And there are times where food just really touches you.
I think that's something that a lot of chefs shoot for. I mean, I know I shoot for it is transporting people somewhere. And I think, the goal for a lot of people is well, I want to remind them of something from when they were younger, something from where they come from. And I feel like that's not necessarily super difficult to hit, but when you're able to transport someone somewhere that they've never been before, right? When you just evoke that much emotion and that kind of reaction from a simple bite of a dish, I think that's truly difficult, right? Because if I know about your background, I know where you grew up, then I can kind of get there, right, with a little bit of research. But to serve you. I mean, the dish you cried over was a chow man mushi, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about a savory egg custard. This is essentially a not sweet flan, right? That doesn't really exist outside of Japan. I mean, there's, the Korean egg souffle, which is similar but different texture. Where am I supposed to take you with a very traditional Japanese dish, especially if you have not lived, traveled, or eaten in Japan? Right? Like, where is that? Where's the route? Mm-hmm. Why is it making you so emotional? And in a good way, right? So where am I taking you? Mm-hmm. It's to new, uncharted territory. Like that, I think, is way more beautiful than like, oh, this reminds me of growing up and having a dish similar to this.
Well, I think it was very special because it was something that totally surprised you because you went somewhere that you've never been before.
Right.
And sometimes, for example, I had some friends that came over and I took them to a couple of museums that I already been to. And they were like, oh, wow. Like they're just losing their minds. And I was like, this is nice because I've been there a couple of times already. So when you find that place that you haven't been before, it's like, it's special. So that's something I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, if we can get into it, where did you learn that? Like, did you go to culinary school? How did you get into this?
A little bit of an interesting way into the industry. A lot of it came from, so growing up, my mom came to this country when she was like 23 years old. I was a year and a half old. We didn't have much family here, if any at all. So growing up, dining out wasn't something that we did often. Right. And even if we went to, the neighborhood Italian spot or the Cheesecake Factory, whatever restaurant it was, like dining out was a momentous thing. Like we were actually spending money on food outside of the house.
Where'd you come from?
We came from Cuba. So I was born in Cuba. I was born in Cardenas. Yeah, exactly. Where people speak with their mouth open.
Right.
It's what I tell my wife. But growing up and seeing my mom work that hard to just be able to go out once or twice a month. And then, things got better financially. We started to be a little bit more comfortable. And the check averages started to increase whenever we would go out. It would bother me just as much over a $10 sandwich as it would a $700 meal if service and food were not what we expected. And I mean, I had no inclination when I was younger to be a chef or to be in this industry at all. I was actually heading towards medical school and just seeing what was going on in Miami. I mean, we're talking about over 15 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
It was kind of depressing. Like I felt like Miami was a tourist city, but didn't have like a good food scene at the time. So I kind of wanted to do something about it. I wanted to figure it out for myself because it's really easy to stand on the outside. I mean, we've all heard it, especially from guests that are like, oh, I spent X amount of dollars here and it just wasn't up to snuff. And it's like, well, have you ever worked a service? Have you ever waited at a table? Have you poured water for a living?
Right.
No? Then you might not be wrong, but there's a different side of the coin that you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
So I started working in the School of Hard Knocks. I just went to restaurants, knocked on doors and got jobs and stages and worked for free in some places and worked for minimum wage in others. I mean, I did whatever I had to do to gain the experience that I wanted, right? But I was very deliberate and intentional about what I was doing. And then opportunities started coming in to work abroad. A couple places in Copenhagen, a couple places in France. And I was really interested in working in one restaurant in Copenhagen, which shall remain nameless. It's not Noma, if that helps, but it ended up not working out because Denmark requires you to have a degree in your field of work in order to be granted a work visa, right? Because once you're in Denmark for whatever period of time it is, you can take part in their social services. So I could have gone to college for free in Denmark. Mm. That's not something that the Danish government is looking to do,
right?
For people who just waltz into their country and like, yeah, I wash dishes and I'm going to get a PhD. You know what I mean? So I get that. And that's how I ended up at the CIA in Napa. I had already lived in California, had spent some time in wine country. And when it came time to choose a school to get a degree from, and we're talking about an accredited degree, not a certificate, my options were CIA in San Antonio, CIA in Hyde Park, New York, or CIA in Napa.
Yeah. For those that don't know, the CIA is the Culinary Institute of America
It predates the Central Intelligence Agency. So when I call the CIA,
by a couple of years.
I'm actually referring to the original. But
The OG, baby.
I digress. But it was one of those things where I had to seriously stop and consider, not that San Antonio doesn't have a good food scene or that New York doesn't have a good food scene, but when we're talking about 70% of the produce that this country consumes comes from the Central Valley in California.
Right.
I mean, if you have the opportunity to be an hour and a half to 2 hours away from the source of the majority of the food in this country,
Of course, it makes sense. Yeah.
why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right? So that's where I spent
Yeah.
18 months of my career, we'll call it,
Right.
at the CIA and just grinding through while working at other restaurants that are in the Napa Valley area.
Well, it works a lot with like sommeliers deal with this. People who deal with wine, bartenders can tend to do it as well. Where there's a philosophy where you don't need an accreditation to do something in this world. You just need to attain experience.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you could have been as successful as you are, and I say that respectfully, had you not gone to the culinary school?
No. So I think, there's been this interesting conversation going on across the industry, I think, about whether culinary school is worth it or not. I think culinary school, much like anything else in life, is worth it if you're putting the time and effort into it, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you're going to culinary school because you just got out of high school, you really don't know what you want out of life, and you're like, well, I've always enjoyed cooking, let's go try that out. You're probably not going to get out of it what someone who wants to make a career out of this industry will, right? And I firmly believe that if you're going to commit to culinary school, you need to commit. But if you're going to a place like the CIA to learn how to cook, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, I feel you.
Like I went to the CIA to be a chef, and being a chef and being a cook, while similar, are very different, right? You don't need as much management skills when you're a cook. You don't necessarily know or care about the bottom line or P&Ls or ordering or sourcing when you're a cook. And I attribute this to like being a cook is significantly more fun than being a chef. You show up, you're playing with ingredients, you're creating, you're doing new things, you're learning constantly. Whereas when you're a chef,
you're an artist and an accountant.
You're an artist and you're an accountant, exactly.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how many times the conversation with my wife, who's my business partner, and way more on the business side of things than I am. Like I could run the business. However, I know my strengths, and her strengths are definitely more on the business side. She's also a pastry chef, to be fair, so numbers are definitely her thing.
Yeah.
But there have been times where I look at her and I'm like, hey, I want to bring abalone in from Santa Barbara. There's this one farm in Santa Barbara. They grow the best abalone I've ever seen in my life. And she's like, that's great. They're $10 a piece.
It's not going to happen.
Like you can get 4 portions out of it, and are people here going to appreciate it?
Right.
Are they going to know that it takes 3 days for you to tenderize, cook, and prepare an abalone the right way to be served at the perfect texture and temperature? Well, no.
Yeah.
And she's like, so then why?
Since you always had it in you that you wanted to open up your own place, what specific moment in time was it the one that you said, okay, I'm ready. I got it. I'm going to jump it now. I'm going to do this.
I think to ever have that, now's the time, this is the moment, I don't think that comes to anyone, right? And if it does, like, more power to you. I didn't necessarily have that aha, let's move forward, let's do it. Like, I'm ready. It was more out of necessity. I mean, I had graduated from the CIA. I finished out my time with Single Thread in Sonoma, and I came back to Miami, fully moving forward to move to Copenhagen to work at said restaurant where I found out I needed a degree. And one thing led to another. I needed to make money, right? Like I needed to put some money in my account and to save up some money to go live in Denmark for a little while. So I started working at Alter. I came back to Miami December of 2019. I started at Alter January 6th of 2020. Right. So does that tell you where we were at a few months later?
Yeah.
So
So
Brad Kilgore.
I think they might have like, what did they do? They opened up like a shop somewhere in Miami. Was that the big thing that happened?
No, they had that restaurant, and after COVID, they ended up.
It was a
closing.
joke, man. I know it was COVID, bro.
Yeah,
What's wrong with you?
because undeniably, I would say that was my favorite
Alter?
dining experience.
Oh, yeah.
in Miami.
I
period.
would say that without a doubt, Alter was
I never
the
went.
best restaurant,
I never
pound for
went.
pound.
went
I would have
twice.
gone
It was
eventually, but
fabulous.
I didn't go.
Even one of his dishes there, it's highly copied around the industry here in Miami.
What dish is that?
It's the egg with the foam.
Oh, the soft egg with the scallop foam. Yeah, no, I mean
That is copied all over.
I mean-
Did
Miami.
you cry at Alter?
I want to talk about this.
honestly though, that dish inspired a lot of what we did at Kojin. I mean, I know the first iteration of our chawan mushi had a similar truffle caviar topping that was a component of that dish. And I mean, what Brad Kilgore does was amazing. And actually we attribute, my wife and I, we attribute a lot of the inspiration that we have for Kojin from Alter. I mean, we're talking about Brad opened this restaurant. It did lunch and dinner. It had a la carte and tasting menu. And he just hit these milestones at Alter where he was like, well, we don't need to offer a la carte anymore. People know what we're doing. They appreciate it. Let's go full on tasting menu. We don't need to style things down. We can actually dress them up. We can take Miami in this direction. And I think without, Brad Kilgore, without Jeremy Ford, and chefs like him or like them in Miami really pushing forward dining, right? True gastronomy in Miami, we wouldn't be where we're at now. Because 10 years ago, you would talk about, what's the it place in Miami? It was steakhouses. It was Prime 112. It was The Forge. It was Morton's. And while those places have...
And everybody battling for the best burger in town.
Right, exactly, which is cool. Right?
Yeah.
And that was a growing portion of Miami's dining scene, but no one was really pushing gastronomy forward.
I mean, I
time.
appreciate your diplomatic romanticism. But let's keep it real. Miami's food scene 20 years ago, 10 years ago was fucking trash, bro. Fancy food in Miami was... I overheard an old school GM of mine say fancy food in Miami was like doing fettuccine Alfredo and putting shrimp on it. That was like 30 years ago in Miami. When 30, 40 years ago, cities like food cities like in
New
California,
York, Chicago,
New York, even the Carolinas, were doing it.
So I've actually been working on this really interesting study. Like, not that I've been reading up on someone else's study, but I've just been doing my own research. You have to take a look at what Miami was 20 to 30 years ago. It's as much of a transient city as it is today.
Right.
So when you have these peaks and valleys of when people are here and what they want when they're here, how can a city adjust to that? I mean, we deal with tourists all the time, right?
It's difficult, yeah.
So what is Miami Beach? Or what is Miami to tourists? It's south of 5th and Collins. Like, that is all of Miami if you're not from Miami.
Yeah.
When was the last time, truly, I mean, I know we're on the beach currently, so it's a little different. Like, you guys live out here. But if you didn't live out here, when would you come to the beach?
I mean, there are restaurants in South of Fifth that I enjoy.
Right.
But other than those, no.
No.
Because it's Ocean Drive. It's a tourist trap.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Like,
let's call it like it is.
No, but there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, every place needs their tourist hub.
Yeah.
But is Miami Beach Miami to Miamians?
Well, no, it's not.
Not at all.
We knew that for a long time. When I first moved here, I was like, I don't like this. When I was my first year living in Miami, I was like walking around Ocean Drive, walking around Washington, Collins, saying this shit sucks, man.
It's a shit show, but it draws a crowd. It draws tourism.
The fact that Miami's like a decentralized city, right? You have to drive everywhere. It's
Yeah.
basically hubs of civilization connected by roadways.
Right.
Where you got other cities like San Francisco or, I mean, you do a lot of driving in Los Angeles, but they have large metropolitan areas where you have a lot of businesses, whatever they might be. And it keeps people connected, right? Because all of the roadways are surrounding those places. And when you're in those civilized hubs, then you have all of your restaurants and all of your stores, et cetera, et cetera. So I get it. There's a lot of things standing against Miami becoming a food city. And we're more a food city now than we ever have.
And I think we're going to go farther than a lot of other places have gone.
I mean, there's no other place to go but up. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Right.
But I mean, what Miami, the advantage of Miami and it being so, I don't want to say disenfranchised from each municipality, we'll call it, is if I told you, hey, there's this great restaurant, it's mind-blowing, it's an hour and a half away from where you live, that's just the cost of doing business. You're just like, oh, okay, that's worth it.
Right.
I'm going to try and get an early reservation rather than eat at 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
So, question, what are some of the challenges that you anticipated before opening your restaurant, and how did you overcome those?
Honestly, the only thing that I was concerned about is how do we get butts in seats? Like, how do we get people in the door? Right? Because and I'm sure this goes for all three of us, the kind of restaurants that we want to go to are the kind of restaurants that 80% of people that are not in the industry have never heard of.
Yeah.
Never heard of, not interested in.
Right. And I mean, like, when you talk to, not to compare these two places, but I think it's the perfect case study to
Compare them,
use,
fuck
right?
it.
You say to one of your guests, the French Laundry, and then you also say single thread. 98% of your guests know the French Laundry.
Right.
2% of your guests have heard of single thread.
Right.
Right. These are both 3 Michelin star restaurants. They're 45 minutes away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they serve incredible, memorable experiences
Right.
in their own rights. But when you look at the French Laundry, has always been more marketable than single thread. It's also been around significantly longer.
Right.
Right. So for us, I don't care where I have to go. I don't particularly care where the restaurant is. So long as they're doing something that's interesting, I will get out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we were looking at when we opened Cogent. I mean, our first project was EMP Dumplings. I had a business partner, Evan Burgess. He's actually opening up a restaurant now. I think it's called Entre Nos. I wish him a lot of success. I'm very excited to see what he does. He was a sous chef at Ariette. But we had a little dumpling pop-up in South Miami out of a threefold cafe, which is now an empanada shop, right? And again, this wasn't born out of us wanting to do something necessarily exciting or trying to make a statement. It was born out of, this is the middle of the pandemic.
Right.
No one's hiring. Money is not coming easily. I mean, this was the one thing that we all know. If you leave a restaurant, by the time you walk out of that door, you probably have a job somewhere else.
Right.
Job security in this industry was 100% there. Then COVID happens and it's like, we're all out of a job. You can't wait tables from home. Like, there's no way for you to do that virtually. I can't cook for someone in my home when they're in their home. You know what I mean? It was very difficult. So we did EMP Dumplings. We opened 3 days a week. The cafe closed at 3. We opened at 6, and we served somewhere in the ballpark of, I think, 20 to 50,000 dumplings in the 3 months that we were there.
Wow.
And these were all hand rolled, and meat mixes were made by hand. We probably had the cheapest short rib in Miami, cost wise, not quality wise. We just got creative to get by and start to build a brand, right, around not so much the food, but the quality of work that we were putting out.
Right.
I mean, you can get dumplings anywhere, right? But why go all the way to South Miami if you live in North Beach for dumplings? Especially made by a Jewish guy and a Cuban guy. Like, what do we know about dumplings?
Still, bro.
Because that's how people. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've had that conversation. You've met Raul, right? My CDC. Can't tell you how many times that comment comes up. It's like, what are two Cuban guys doing cooking Japanese food? Like, where are my rice and beans? And I'm like, well, I'm a professional.
Right.
This is what I do for a living. Like, what kind of food would you like me to cook for you outside of Cuban food or Latin food? Like, we know what we're doing.
Right.
I don't think it necessarily matters.
It matters to some. It matters to people who don't understand the nuances of,
Correct.
skill and experience. But whatever.
So how did you assess the market to create that niche for your restaurant concept? Did you decide to go in that Japanese fusion because that's what you felt that you had the mastery for? Or did you decide to go on that route because you felt this is what the Miami people want?
I think to do something that would make others happy and not myself happy would not be true
Right.
to us.
Yeah.
And it would end up showing in our food, right? And in our experience. I think Miami has gone through and is continuing to go through this sushi omakase craze, which is fantastic, right?
I love it.
I love it too, but there comes to a certain point where, not every Peruvian restaurant's going to serve papas a la huancaína, right? There's more to Peruvian food than potatoes and cheese sauce. Like, let's call it what it is. There's more to Peruvian food than lomo saltado.
A lot.
There's way more to Japanese food than raw fish on rice. Not to discredit it.
Right.
It's an insanely difficult thing to do. It takes a lot of skill. It's very simple at its basis.
But that's what makes it so complicated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, in Miami, there were 3 restaurants serving chow and mushis when Kojin was still open. That's insane. You know what I mean? How many Japanese restaurants are there in Miami?
It's big.
It's an astronomical number in comparison to most other cuisines.
Right.
So our thing was when we saw the Kojin space, or the space that ended up becoming Kojin, we were in a room with no hoods, only outlets, and it was designed perfectly to be a sushi bar. And it would have done exceptionally well as a sushi bar. I actually believe they're currently opening up a sushi concept in there, which is great.
Yeah.
Yet,
How great.
no, I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I really wish them well. But for me, it was like, well, this is the easy thing to do. But then we're just a blade of grass in a field, right? What is going to differentiate what we're doing from what everyone else is doing? And I said, why don't we try and do a tasting menu out of a space that has no kitchen? I mean, we're talking about 490 square feet. I had a low boy. To be fair, 2 low boys. One of them was for drinks. I had a countertop oven and 2 induction burners, and we would do a multi-course dining experience.
Yeah.
That's difficult to pull off. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but
I mean, it's facts.
but it's not easy to do.
No.
Yeah, it goes to show that a lot of people think that in order for you to make it, you need all this very expensive equipment and all these fancy stuff. And all you really need is
Well, it's
Talent and the bare minimum.
Well, it's like
and
being
the
a young
desire to
cook.
do something awesome, you know?
Right.
It's what I attribute. Like a lot of young cooks, they want to get better knife skills. They want to have better knife skills and cut better and cut finer and cut more precise. So instead of just practicing their knife skills, they go out and spend $600 on a knife.
Right.
It's like, doesn't matter how expensive the knife is. If you don't take the time to work on it, it's never going to make a difference. So, you know, if we had $2 million to open a concept and we can get all the brand new shiny equipment and build things out to the way we want, like then there's no excuse. But when you're at a point where you can only operate with what's available to you and you can still put out a great meal and a phenomenal experience, like that's a true expression of what you're capable of.
I feel the same way. I mean, when I go out to eat, yeah, there's a lot of research and development and investment that goes into the ambiance of a restaurant, the color of the chairs, the texture of the fabric you're sitting on, the china, you know, everything. And all that stuff, I'm not going to say I don't appreciate it. It's amazing. I think it enhances the experience. But dude, the only thing I care about is when I go into a restaurant, if the food's good or not, man.
There's something I used to say to guests all the time. It's
That's
like,
it.
I don't care where I'm sitting.
Right.
You could put me in a windowless room with 0 decor.
Right.
If your service and your food is exceptional, I really don't care about the rest.
That's
if I want to
it,
go
man.
somewhere for a vibe,
Yeah.
I will go somewhere for a vibe.
Right. Exactly.
That doesn't have to have anything to do with food.
Right.
I think Miami for a long time has been it's a great place to be seen or to see people, the way you feel when you're there. And it's like, yeah, how's the meal though? It's
definitely,
okay.
yeah. It's definitely still about that.
Sure.
Of course, more than ever, it's about Miami having places where you can go and have a serious culinary experience, which I think is amazing because, like I said, we're only getting better.
Correct. But I think it needs to start happening at every level,
Right.
right? Like it can't just be the $3 and $4 sign restaurants that are providing these beautiful gastronomic experiences. I think a sandwich shop has every capability to still provide you with a tear-jerking experience.
Yeah.
I mean, there are
No offense. I mean, it's
there are sandwich shops out there right now that do also have recognition by the Michelin Guide. They do have the Big Gourmand. We have 2 restaurants here in Miami that, or actually more than 2. I apologize, but 2 of them are just sandwich shops.
yeah.
And they're fantastic. You know, it goes into show that you were also recognized by the Michelin Guide. You got a Big Gourmand on one year.
It was a Michelin recommendation.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you are a feature on their guide, and
Yeah.
it's something that not every restaurant is.
I mean, yeah, let's take a moment, bro. Like, that's pretty serious.
It is. It's huge. I
It's
mean,
a huge thing.
when we found out, I cried. I will not lie. I'm not going to be cool about it and say like, "Oh yeah, we were expecting." No.
Fuck that, man.
I got very emotional. I mean, that was one of the goals for my career is just to get on the guide. I didn't care whether it
Right.
was 1, 2, 3 stars or just a bib, or my name was in the most respected guide in the world. Right next to my name was my wife's name. Like, we've worked really hard
That's gangster, bro.
our entire career
Honestly, it's amazing.
to just get there.
So how do you manage to stay humble throughout those times? Did it fed a little bit on that ego, or
No, because it's nothing to do with me at all. Like, without,
I mean, it's got something to do with you.
yes, but
Pedro, come on.
But without our guests,
No,
without
I
the
get it.
support from the community,
I get it.
what we do is irrelevant, right? And not to belittle what we're doing, but without your feedback, right? Without seeing how emotional you got, without seeing how excited you got to come eat at our restaurant, why continue, right? I don't think for us just continuing to be like, all right, we're open, we serve food, we close, we clean up, we close, we come back tomorrow and do it again. Like, that's not what our philosophy is. Our philosophy is to constantly progress and move people.
Right.
Right. And I used to say this all the time. I had 2 goals every night during service: to make someone cry, and not from like a Gordon Ramsay, the bear kind of way where I make someone cry because of emotional abuse, but to make someone cry because we move them, and to cause one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen happen, that even I've experienced being in this industry, is someone who is a quarter to halfway through their meal, pull out their phone and try to find the next reservation they can make to come eat at that restaurant.
That's cool.
If while you're dining with us, you're just thinking about, when can I come back here?
Right.
Like, that's it. We won. It's over. We did our jobs. And that's what it's about. But to answer your original question, to circle back to all this, when are you ready? Never. When is the time to do it? Now.
Yeah.
Like, let's face it, we're all fairly young.
Right.
Everyone has gone out on their own and fallen on their face. And then tried it again and again and again. You keep going until you can't go anymore, or until you succeed. You have nothing to lose. No one will ever look at your resume and go, you try to open 3 concepts across 6 years, none of them succeeded, I can't hire you.
Right.
You're coming to the table with experience
Right.
that no one or very few other people are coming to the table with. Like, that's something that no culinary school can purchase. No time at any Michelin star restaurant can buy you. It's sweat equity that you've put into your advancement in your field.
Now, I know that although people think that they can be superhuman and do everything on their own, but we can't.
No.
What steps did you take to find a skill team and also to instill them that desire to work the same way that you do?
I mean, it comes...
that positive
Right,
work
because like you said,
environment.
that's part of being a chef, right?
Right.
Apart from being a cook and an accountant, I mean, you're also a manager.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a team
You have
leader.
to manage, you have to inspire, you have to train.
It comes down to finding the right people. This is something that I think Daniel Hum talks about a lot, or his business partner, Will. Why am I forgetting his name? It'll come to me. The guys from 11 Madison Park. I took one of their metrics that they discuss all the time. I hire and I recruit based on the 51%.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, if your attitude is right and you want to learn, but have little to no experience, you are more eligible to work with me
Yeah.
than someone with all the experience in the world, but is not open to anything that we're doing.
Right. That's the whole like Danny Meyer, like 50-50 rule. 50% of people are born with the ability to work hard and learn, but they don't have what's called like a hospitality gene. And then a 51% per se, right, are people that have that same drive to learn and improve, but are just born with a sort of like a vibe where they're hospitable. And they're like, I want to take care of people. You can't teach that.
Yeah.
Because like the whole Danny Meyer team, the 11 Madison, the Shake Shack, all that stuff, they were like Gramercy Tavern, they're renowned for their service, like across the board. Their service is like impeccable. All the people there are like maniacs because they instill this kind of like cult vibe, but in like a cool way. If that makes any sense.
It's funny that you said cult, because
Yeah.
I tell my wife all the time. So my CDC is bald, has a beard, is Hispanic. My sous chef is
Show
going
me.
back to culinary school.
He showed me a picture, and for a moment I thought it was you. I was like, "Yo, look at Pedro. He's looking good." He's like, "That's not Pedro." I was like, "Oh shit, my bad."
But my sous chef is also bald with a beard. He's on his way back to culinary school. Like my wife says, it's like you're starting a little cult, and I'm like, no, it's not a cult. It's
Right.
just a way of being. Granted, we all look similar, but it comes down to at the end of the day, how well are we taking care of our guests? And it's not just what you need; it's anticipating your needs before you even know you have them. That is true hospitality.
That's true hospitality, and it's difficult because that's something that really that's one of the details that separates like normal vibe service from exceptional service, and it's usually a circumstance where guests never pick up on. It's like salt in dessert. If there's salt in a dessert, if it's there, you won't know it's there.
But it enhances it.
It enhances it. But if there's no salt in a dessert, then you'll eat it, you'll enjoy it, you'll be like, something might have been missing from this.
Correct.
So if you have that sort of anticipation and that sort of proactive vibe for cooking, for serving, people don't usually pick up on that.
No. So, and I mean, I've developed, and not that I've developed, but we have a lot of these sayings in our kitchen where it's like, be proactive, not reactive, right?
Exactly.
If you're telling me that you need something, I have effectively failed at my job.
Sure
and my
does.
team has effectively failed at their job. Now,
Same.
oversights happen.
Right.
I am notorious for being bad at pouring water. Like, I just don't, your wine glass will be full always, all the time. You may be a little thirsty though. You may want some water. I am just never going to be that guy that's like, oh, he's low on water. Not me. It's one of my many faults. However, that's what you build a team around, right? You build a team around people that are as vigilant as you are and that can pick up the slack where you have the slack and then you pick up their slack. It's all about knowing where to place people and how to get the best out of them without exploiting them, right? Without just using someone for what they're good at and teaching people. I mean, there have been times at Cogent where I would buy extra fish just to show everyone how we cut fish. I mean, we're a small team. It wasn't like there was 10 of us. At the maximum, there was 4 or 5 of us in there. But it would do me a disservice if I had meetings to go to or things to be a part of, right? Like looking for another space, yet fish needed to be butchered, but it had to wait for me to come back. And no one else on the team could do it.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't work, right? It doesn't work that I'm the only one who knows about sake or wine. Like these are things that we have to teach, but you have to find people who want to be taught. And as a leader, you also have to be open to learn from your team.
Right.
I have learned just as much from Raul and Chris and my wife as they have learned from me. And what I have taught them actually has less to do with food and has more to do with how you behave, act, and walk in a restaurant. And I don't mean this from a service standpoint. I just mean, you know, Chris will eventually hear this podcast, and I said this to him probably for 3 months.
Yeah.
It's, do you shower with your clothes on? Totally random topic, but do you shower with your clothes on?
I love random topics.
But would you ever shower with your clothes on?
Yeah, why not?
Realistically, no, it doesn't make sense. You're not showering.
Right.
You might be killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? You might be doing laundry and taking a bath, but it just doesn't work. That sounds wrong. So I apply that thought process to working on your station and doing prep, right?
What if you're like bashful? What if you want to shower, but you're like insecure about like, you know, your penis size, or you don't want people to see
You didn't want to see
naked?
yourself.
there are professionals that handle that kind of psychological
that's a
issue.
different department.
That's not.
That's a different guess.
That's a different department. It's a different guest, a different day.
Yeah, that's not us.
Look forward. Stay tuned.
But that's the thing, right? It's taking that second with your team and saying like, hey, do you shower with your clothes on? They're like, no. And then they take a step back. They look at what they're working on. They realize like, all right, there's some inefficiencies here that no one is doing to me other than myself. I can take the 2 minutes now, clear everything, get back to 0.
Right.
And then start from there. And the rest of my day gets easier. And that's the thing that, I mean, you guys know it. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Everything in a restaurant compounds, right? So if your wine delivery is late, that means you're not stocking your wines in the cellar at the right time for them to hit the right temperature. And now you're serving out of temperature wine to a guest.
Right.
That guest is less likely to enjoy that glass of wine. And this has nothing to do with anything that was under your control.
Right. Or your liquor delivery's late and you only got Tito's, you didn't get Grey Goose.
Well, actually,
Right.
one time that I went to eat at Chef's
so you can't serve that
restaurant,
guest their Grey Goose cocktail.
I had because he had only at 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And I was going to go for the 6 p.m. And he calls me and says, unfortunately, the guy that brought me the prawns messed up and brought them frozen. So I told him to, fuck off and bring him back to me the right temperature. And because of that, he said, would you like to come in at the 8?
Yep.
And I said, for prawns, for an extra dish? Absolutely. Totally fucking worth it.
Yeah.
The wait? Forget about it.
But I mean, that's the other thing too. I would rather stop service and not make money for one night if I know that the product I'm putting out is not perfect or as close to perfect as we can get it, right? Would you have been able to tell the difference between frozen prawns and fresh prawns?
No.
Probably not. But does it make a difference to me? Yeah. Because like I have to sleep at night, right? Like I have to know that.
I was going to say, do you sleep?
I had that issue. I have that issue all the time.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a personal matter, right? I would feel if I'm paying less for what could be considered a lesser product, but still charging you the same price. Like, how do I live with that as a person? It's kind of hard to.
Right.
So with that being said, like I would rather, and I've done this on several occasions, I would rather call our guests and be upfront and honest and move them to a better time or just give them their money back if I'm not going to be delivering the service and food at a standard that I'm comfortable with.
Talking about money.
Yeah.
How did you secure funding and manage the financial aspects of running your restaurant? Because that's something that always baffles people. They're like, yeah, I want to open my little food truck, but where do I get the money?
Honestly, there's many routes to go. There's the Small Business Association. There's small local banks. I would always say go the friends and family route first. Talk to your friends and family. No one will support you like your friends and family. And I mean, we started coaching with $10,000 from between my mom and my aunt. That was it. That's all it took for us to get coaching going. And granted, we were only supposed to be there for 3 months. We ended up being there for 2 years and 3 months. So it just, the success started to compound and we started to move forward. But we paid our loan back to our family within a month of being open, which was great. You know, it was a success at the time. And it's just that, right? Like we're in that search now for funding to open another restaurant, and we're having meetings with banks. We're having meetings with private equity companies. We're having meetings with people who are just interested in seeing us succeed.
Right.
And the financial aspect will come, but you need to build around it, right? You need to understand that for your first restaurant or your first outing, you're probably not going to find $2 million unless you're independently wealthy, and then you're not. Like
Then
finances aren't your
then what are we
concern.
talking about,
Then
right?
Yeah. You tuned out for this part of the conversation.
Right, exactly.
But something that I want everyone to walk away from this podcast with, it's easier to scale up than it is to scale down. Right? There is no way to scale down when you have leased a space that is 3,000 square feet. You're going to pay rent on 3,000 square feet. If you cannot sustain the business or if your business cannot sustain 3,000 square feet, there is no conversation to have with the landlord where you're like, hey, can we cut out 1,000 square feet? Can we just like put up a wall and you sell that space to someone else? Because I can really only afford 2,000 square feet. Yeah. You know, but scaling up is significantly easier. You have 1,500 square foot space and you're at capacity every day that you're open. Well, now moving up to a 2,500 square foot space.
Right.
Is significantly easier. So start small. Grow.
Yeah.
Like there's an island just off of Key Largo. It's called Little Sister Island. It's been for sale for the past 15 years. The last time I looked at it, it was going for $6.5 million. Would I love to have an angel investor where he has more money than God? And it's like, yeah, let's buy an island. Let's build a ferry.
Up a fucking restaurant over there.
Yeah.
So people have to do a whole experience to get there.
It's fucking amazing.
We have to charter boats. To
I would
take
love
people
that shit.
Right.
I get incredibly seasick, but I would go.
But I would commute to work on a little skiff every day. Absolutely.
That's cool.
Now, is that the reality for your first outing as a chef? No.
It's probably not even reality for your third outing as a chef.
And I mean, like,
it's not gonna happen.
A lot of the chefs that I worked for, Kyle Connaughton, the chef owner of Single Thread, he opened Single Thread when he was 42 years old.
Right.
Right, like that's it's really easy to take a step back and say like, oh, well, you know, Sean Brock had a lot of success with Husk, and now he's doing very well with the Continental and Audrey, which I ate at June, one of his Kaiseki Southern concept at the Audrey this past weekend. But how old is Sean Brock? Like, how many years did he work all over the U.S. to get to that point to where he is now, where he's like, hey, I want to go do this. And he has the financial backing and he has the people behind him to say like, all right, we'll support you. It takes time.
It does.
So to be, you know, 26,
Takes luck too. Takes luck too. Takes
Absolutely.
luck too.
Well, I mean, it takes skill. And when you have skill and luck, those two things meet.
Right.
It's a recipe for success.
But I mean, there's a lot of instances where you have a restaurant that has money, that has location, that they've done their research for their demographic, for their market, and they don't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens.
It does. And I think what it comes down to
And they got
is-
good food too.
And
And they still don't make it.
But I want to say something about luck real quick. There's something that I learned recently through Instagram. This guy says, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
It's not just, oh, he's lucky, he got it. No, it's because if someone offers you an opportunity to have a restaurant of your own, it's because this person sees how prepared you are to have a restaurant on your own. And
Exactly.
that's luck. It's not just, oh, look at me, I got picked out of random. So it's when preparation meets opportunity.
No,
So
Yeah, but there is an intangible
Yes.
that goes with success
right.
that I don't think anybody should depend on that intangible to be successful. But you know, sometimes you do get a little sprinkle of enhancement.
But it takes a lot of work
Absolutely.
to get lucky.
Cannot do
Right.
it without hard work.
For someone to say like, oh, I just got lucky.
Cannot do it.
No, you worked really hard.
They're just being modest.
They're being very modest. They're being bashful.
They're being bashful.
But with that being said, you know, when you're a young industry individual, right? And you're 26, 27, you're like, yeah, I'm going to go out on my own and this is going to be the next big thing. You might not be wrong, but I think having a more realistic perspective of what you're going to be doing and what that's going to take and entail for you to make it successful is infinitely more useful than just saying, well, you know, it's a $3 million project, but it's going to kill it because I've done all this research. You're 27 years old.
Right.
Like,
a
who's gonna
question
hand
that some that are enjoying the show right now might say is, how old are you now, if you don't
I'm
mind?
30. Yeah. So I was that 27-year-old that's like, yeah, I could use $4 million. I can open a 3 Michelin star restaurant. It's no big deal. It's $4 million.
So that's
guys.
awesome that you are where you are at this age. Right?
Yeah, but it took time. It took work. It took a lot of long nights looking in the mirror going like, all right, are we going the right direction or are you getting ahead of yourself? How many steps are you skipping? And I do not recommend in this industry skipping steps. Take the time, earn your stripes.
Which is perfect for the next question is, when did you started devising the concept of your restaurant and of your dishes? Is it something that you had from the very beginning? Is it something that you had while you were in the CIA? Is it something that you had while you were working at Alter? At what point did you started drawing your dishes or saying, okay, I want to do a dish with X ingredient, that ingredient,
Yeah.
cooked in that way?
Walk us through the creative process.
Yeah.
Of a
When
dish
did
of
you
yours.
started doing that creative process, or was it after that you sat with your aunt and said, "Hey, I need money to make my own restaurant"? At what point was that?
I think it's a little different for everyone. For me,
Got serious. He took his hat off.
it's
Or is it hot? Is it hot?
It's a little warm in here, but it's okay.
Let me shake that AC.
No,
Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Okay, I can shake it online. Go ahead.
For me, it was one of those things that it happens all the time, everywhere, always. I genuinely have to walk around with a pen and a notebook because I can just be sitting in a movie theater and a dish comes to mind, or I'm waiting for a fish delivery and this component of a dish that has 13 components just it made sense in my head at the time. It all comes down to just pure inspiration, always, and being open to things. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting at a restaurant, and I do this all the time with my wife. She actually, as much as she loves spending time with me, she hates going out to eat with me.
Why?
Because if there's an open kitchen, like I am no longer on a date. I am here doing research.
Right.
And she's trying to be on a date with me, and I'm just like, yeah, that's great, honey.
What are they doing with that over
That is
there?
a French top. Okay.
What are
Yeah,
they
they
doing?
don't have open burners. That's interesting. Oh, there's a combi under that counter. That makes sense. That's how they're cooking their chicken. And she's like, that's great. How do you feel about going on this vacation? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But look, so it's just that I think for me, I'm always on.
Right.
So it's difficult to pinpoint like, oh, well, it's at this exact moment, or in these cases, that's when I'm most into creating. It just happened. But we would discuss like, hey, we're going to change the menu in a month, right? We have 30 calendar days to change the menu. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. I have 30 days now. That means for the first 28 days, I am not doing a thing, right? Because it just doesn't come to me.
You don't work that way.
I don't work that way. I think the times where I'm put into that vice or that pinch of like, hey, we need to come up with something. We need to find a solution. 5 minutes before service starts, I've always been the most creative, right? So for me to sit down and write a brand new menu, it takes that sit down, here's a piece of paper, let's draw a framework. Because come up with a 16-course menu. Oh, okay, sure. How many proteins? No, do whatever you want. What? It's not going to make sense. Like, I need those guidelines. I need the rigidity of this is the structure of things, which is one of the reasons why we were pseudo kaiseki at Kojin, right? Like, we had to have a steamed dish, we had to have a seared dish, a poached dish. So working within that structure actually gave me a lot more freedom than just come up with whatever you want.
Yeah. My favorite dish that I had at Kojin when I went there was something with like mushrooms. I forgot what it was.
Was it the chawanmushi, the savory egg custard?
No, it wasn't the custard. It was something else. It was like you had like had like
mushroom tart?
hen of the woods in there. There was a bunch of like
It was our mushroom tart.
mamma mia.
So that dish is actually
Fuck.
I would love to take credit.
Jesus.
But that dish was Raul's dish. So
Yeah.
something that
Amazing.
I think we do a little bit differently. Maybe not. We're probably just more open to it. Is when we put people in a certain position, that position comes with certain responsibilities. If I make someone the chef de cuisine, that means they are responsible for menu development, just as responsible as I am for it, at least. And there are times where I would look at Raul and I'm like, hey, we need a dish for this course. Here's the rest of the menu.
It's fucking good.
Come up with something.
So good.
And we would work together on it. He would get the bones of the dish done, and then we would refine and constantly dial it in. And I mean, the mushroom tart, that had to be like our third or fourth iteration of the menu.
It was so good, man.
And it's a one bite dish.
Yeah, it's so good though.
But it's so complex and just it punches you in the face.
So much umami.
So
It's fucking
since-
delicious, bro.
Since you do give that assignment to the people that work with you, would you say that would be important, or do you yourself have mentors or role models that influence each dish that you have?
I mean, absolutely. I think, anyone who's dined in Miami for the past 10 years can see a lot of, alter in our meal, a lot of Brad Kilgore's style of dining. Anyone who's been in the Pacific Northwest will see a lot of California influence and wine country influence. There's some stuff that we were getting out of New York. There's definitely a lot of things that we were getting out of Japan. Are most guests as well-traveled or well-versed in food as we are? I'd like to think so. The reality is probably not. I mean, we've all had different experiences. If, like I'm heading out to California tomorrow, but if the three of us were going to California together, I think we would all have wildly different experiences, even if we're in the same place at the same time. Like, I can't tell people how much I enjoy the Napa Valley Olive Oil Company. It's a farmhouse. It's genuinely a farmhouse, and it doesn't even make sense. I don't know how they're open still, but it is one of the coolest spots. But anyone else will be like, you got to go check out this winery. I'm like, no, go to the Napa Valley Olive Oil Company. You know what I mean? Like, are you excited when you're in Napa for olive oil? Probably not. Is it some of the best olive oil you've ever had? Yeah.
Really?
But you see what I mean? Like, so having those difference in experiences and having the opportunity to bring something to the table is huge. And, Raul, my CDC, he's going to be 25 this year. You know what it is to be the chef de cuisine of a restaurant that was recognized in the Michelin Guide and you're 25 years old?
It's awesome.
It's huge.
It's gonna be a rock star.
Right. He's going to be a rock star. And I tell him every time we work together, I'm like, your goal in life is to be better than me.
Yeah. I've heard that before. That's not the first time I've heard that. That seems to be something a lot of chefs don't realize, or just mentors in general, superiors per se. Your goal shouldn't be to just talk down to the people below you. It should be your goal in that situation should always be to make the people who are, not beneath you per se, but who you are superior to, make them better than you are.
Yeah.
So something that we
To bring them up. You're the leader.
To bring them up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something that we discuss within our core group all the time is restaurants are functionally not designed to be successful, right? And what I mean by that is from a people aspect. If the three of us work together, right, our goal is to just make the restaurant successful. But if you leave, the restaurant will still be successful without you. And you'll probably be successful without the restaurant. However, you just end up creating these branches with no roots. So we'll take Raul as an example. My goal with Raul is one day the conversation will come up and it's like, Chef, I have this idea for this concept. This is what I want to do. Most of the time in a lot of other restaurants, it's like, well, all right, I wish you the best. If there's anything you need, give us a call. Where's the follow through? Does it happen? Maybe. Is it apparent? Not from my perspective.
Really?
But if I've already done all the hard work, right? Like I've already written business plans with my wife. I've had meetings with banks. I've negotiated for a lease and how to get tenant improvement money or how to get rent abatement. It would be doing a disservice, not just to myself or Raul, but to whatever area this concept is meant to be opened in, to not continue to be that mentor, to not continue to work side by side with someone like Raul and help him get there. I think it's incredibly irresponsible of any leader in this industry to just pat someone on the back and send them out the door when they're ready to do their own thing. You need to continue to be their mentor. So, and I've always said this, for me personally, I never want more than 3 restaurants that are mine. Now, will our hospitality group hopefully at some point, have 20 to 30 concepts under it?
Hopefully.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are they all mine? No. They're built by our team. They're built by our hospitality group, but it's that support system that chefs really need. I mean, chefs are notoriously horrible business owners. The same way doctors are horrible business owners. Like that's not our lane. Our lane is to provide a service and to make people happy. I have an accountant. I go to my accountant religiously because I am not an accountant. When we need permits, we go to a permit runner. We find people who that is their lane. That is what they do. I mean, we have an attorney. I'm not sitting here writing NDAs from scratch or taking a boilerplate document offline. Like, these are the things you have to do to be successful. You delegate and you put people in the right place.
Huge.
But I feel like if I'm already doing the work for these things, why can't I pass that on to someone else and make it easier for them to get there? And this doesn't mean like, well, I'm going to take care of this for you, right? I'm not going to do the work for you. I'm just going to be there to walk you through and so that I can expand your network. Because instead of just saying, well, here's an attorney or find an attorney when you're drafting up your documents, it's, well, here's my attorney's number. Do you want to set up an appointment? Let's set up a time where we can go talk to the attorney. I'll introduce you and help you get the legal work you need done. Yeah. You need an accountant. Let's do some research. Let's find an accountant, all right? Or you can go to my accountant and build that. Because without that, we're just all competing for the same dollar. And that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I think developing that group, not just a hospitality group, but that group of people that can count on each other and rely on each other makes everything so much better. I mean, there were days where, with the different fish provider that we were working with, I didn't know when I was getting my deliveries. And if it wasn't for the other restaurant owners that I knew, I wouldn't be serving hamachi, right? It would be a 3:00 phone call like, hey, do you have an extra side of hamachi that I can come pick up from you? And the answer was usually like, yeah, absolutely, come on by. Here's the invoice, just cover the cost. Imagine a world where you can't do that. Imagine a world where you happen to run out of microgreens or cornstarch and the restaurant next to you has plenty of it. And they're like, nah, sorry, you should have been a little bit more responsible and placed your order. Like
right. I'm sure that happens, because a lot of this business is cutthroat, right? But Fortunately, from my experience, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
We're short on ice. Shit happens. You develop relationships with restaurants around you.
Yep.
Because if there's one restaurant, there tends to be other restaurants in the vicinity. Dude, we're out of ice. Okay, fine. You know, we got you. Or just like you said, if there's something in the back of house that's short, we got you.
Yeah.
Because that's how those relationships are built. You know, you gotta have a little bit of reciprocity. Say, I'm gonna help you. I know you're gonna help me. But yeah, I mean, there is a tendency to be cutthroat in this business too, which I don't think helps anybody.
It doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, hospitality starts with us, and that's something that that I've really tried to instill in my team. Like, if we come to work and it's always, well, you're a fucking piece of shit. You never know what you're doing. When I need you, you're not around. Like, that doesn't work. How are we supposed to get from that environment, and then a guest is in front of us and we're
I hate that fake shit,
supposed
man.
to be happy?
I hate that fake shit. Yeah. People who smile at guests or they smile at VIPs, and then behind the curtain, they're just pieces of shit, man.
I mean, you
I hate that.
dined with us plenty of times. The way that I'm behaving right now with you is the same way that I would behave
100%.
during service. If I'm having a bad day, I think you should know that I'm not having a good day, because then that informs you on why the experience. I mean, there's a certain level of professionalism.
Of
right?
course,
like I still have
yeah.
to provide a service.
Yeah.
But if
Show
I'm
must go
not
on.
as chatty, you at least understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, this is a human being we're dealing with, right? And they're going through whatever they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Today is not the day for them to be all happy, hunky-dory. It happens.
Food's still good.
Food's still
Service
amazing.
is
The
great.
service is still there. What else matters, right? And that comes down to some of the other things that I think.
He's a little chilly now. Let's.
No, it's perfect.
He's a little
It's
chilly.
perfect.
Okay, just making sure.
I'm just self-conscious. I'm Paul. No, I'm kidding. But
He's in the hot seat.
But no, I think something that we've taken into very serious consideration as a hospitality group is, and for lack of a better term, it's extracurriculars, right? There's fundamentally things that aren't taken care of in our industry. Do you have back pain?
Who doesn't, man?
Do you have back pain?
Of course.
You kidding me?
Do you know how much it costs to see a chiropractor?
Like $30.
Like $30 once a week. So
Yeah.
on average, it's $120 a month.
Yeah.
How would you like to see one for free or at no cost to you?
Sounds amazing.
It'd be fantastic. When do you find the time, though? So money aside, when do you have the time to do that? You don't. So maybe you go once a month, but like realistically, what is that doing for you?
And self-care too. Self-care is kind of there's a paradox there.
Right.
You should do it, but you don't tend to.
Right. So one of the things that we do a little differently is we had this guest come in to Kojin who just wanted to check out sake, was getting into sake. And again, you guys have both been there. We get personal, like in a good way, right? Like we actually want to get to know you. We want to know the kind of person that you are. You're just not another dollar sign to us. Like a lot of restaurants are like that. We don't want to be that. So I get talking with this guy, really nice, really intelligent, super sweet, fun to be around, just an ideal guest. Then I make the joke of like, you know what I really need? I need a chiropractor. And he's like, well, I'm a chiropractor. Cool.
Barter system.
Barter
There you
system,
go.
right? But and I'm like, oh, that'd be great if you had a table. He's like, table's always in the car. I thought this guy's fucking with me.
I love it.
Service ends. He's like, all right, I'll be right back. Goes out the back door, comes back in, has a table. And I'm like, oh, this is happening. My wife's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going to get adjusted. She's like, do you even know this person? I'm like, no. What do I have to lose?
Right?
Like,
My back?
yeah, what's a little bit of like not being able to move for the rest of my life? It's fine.
It's no big deal.
Trust.
All kidding aside, licensed chiropractor. But now we have someone who is not only capable of helping myself, but capable of helping the entire staff,
Yeah.
can gain some monetary value from it, but is also willing to do this, right? Wants to do this. And that's how that end kind of started. I was like, well, this is a service that I can provide out of my pocket to our staff. And I mean, imagine twice a month, this guy comes in, looks at everyone and goes, all right, what's hurting you? Oh, you know, my knees are really bothering me. He's like, all right, cool. 10 minutes before service or during family meal, you're going to want to sit this way and apply pressure here to kind of stretch out your joints. And this should make it a little bit easier for you to get through service with less knee pain. And if you'd like, before family meal, I can adjust you and kind of, you know, do some muscle work for you so that you don't deal with this pain.
Damn.
Like that would change my life as a chef.
It's amazing.
Right. And now I know that every 2 weeks as an employee, I can mark on the calendar like, hey, the chiropractor's coming. He's going to do some muscle work. We're going to do a team stretch. We're going to, do a little bit of a team meditation, whatever it takes. But the chef and the owner are concerned about our well-being, and they want to see us, work well, but take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else that we have a kind of a partnership deal with is our tattoo artist. Yeah. Tattoos are a big thing in our industry. I mean, you guys are, Adrian, do you have any tattoos?
No, sir.
Oh, well, it's okay. We all make mistakes. I'm kidding. But we have a tattoo artist
The only one
that we work exclusively with, because that is a form of therapy. That is, I mean, this. There's every week someone in the restaurant has a new tattoo.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
It's big. It's big in the industry.
But what if we could provide that for our staff? Like, hey, you go see this person. You're either getting a discounted rate or we work out some kind of barter, but you have the opportunity to get a tattoo at little to no cost to you. And, I'll front the cost of that as the chef, as the restaurant owner. But this is a perk for the staff.
Right.
Nice.
Now, like, we're taking care of you on, somewhat of a physical and metaphysical level. And the last key to this puzzle is mental health. Like, I've been talking with a few psychologists and psychiatrists on how to develop a system where it's included for the staff. X amount of sessions a month, X amount of time a month, every staff member has the opportunity to speak with a mental health specialist.
Right.
Because
there's a lot of fucked up people in this industry, bro.
Correct. But
It's true.
Here's my thing. I left Miami to work.
I mean, no, functionally fucked up.
No, of course.
Right.
But I left Miami to work. Can you imagine leaving what you consider to be home, dealing with the loss of a family member in a new place that you just started working at a couple of months ago?
It's terrifying.
Who do you open up to?
Yeah.
Where's your support system?
Yeah.
And it's all a support system with a bias, right? Because at the end of the day, as a business owner, I need you to be effective, right? Like, it's not that I'm trying to be inhumane about it, but I need you to do a job. That's what you're here to do. But I don't necessarily always have the time to sit down and discuss what's going on. And you may not feel comfortable sitting down discussing with me what's going on.
Yeah.
But if there's a third party without a bias, that all I do is hand you a phone number and you decide whether you call or not, I have provided you with all the tools to have a support system, to get through what you need to get through so you can be effective not only at work, but in life. And I mean, we're even discussing the legalities behind how we can do this in a way that doesn't infringe on, the I almost said client, but our employees' rights or my rights as a business owner or the psychiatrist's rights or psychologist's rights. And it's one of those things that we're just going to build it into our onboarding. So I'll hire you, but for you to get put on the schedule, you have to call this person, not for an evaluation, not for some kind of study. You just need to call them so they can provide you with the list of services that are provided for you and what their job is and how they're meant to help you. And once you make that phone call, they then inform me like, hey, Adrian gave us a call. He understands what my job is and what I'm here for. He's good to go. You can put him on the schedule. I don't know anything about you. I don't need to know what's going on. I don't need to know what, psychological manifestations you're dealing with. It's just you did the job. You made the call. You now know what's available to you. I can put you on the schedule.
Nice.
But now I have done everything for you other than your job. There is no reason that you're not capable of functioning as optimally as humanly possible in the workplace. I am now fiduciary. I have a fiduciary responsibility to pay you. I've given you access to mental health services. I'm taking care of your body as much as I possibly can. And the day you do want a tattoo, there is someone that you can go to.
Little perks. I love it.
But it's perks, but it's how do I
optimize?
How do I optimize?
Right.
How do I take care of the people that are taking care of me?
Healthier, happier people are just going to make better food, man.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, I bet you're all thinking, where do I apply? Unfortunately, Chef decided to close his shop.
It was time. We need to grow. and we needed to kind of take a step back and see what direction we want to move towards. I'm always going to want the very high-end fine dining Michelin experience. I'm realizing more and more every day that while that is an attainable goal and a dream, there's a lot more work to put in before we get there.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than finishing a race before it starts, right? It's all about the journey and how we hit that end. So we closed the restaurant. I'm currently working for a catering company as their executive chef and culinary director. It's a huge shift for me in what I've done, but it's another avenue of exploring a different sector of this industry that I've not done before, and I'm having quite a bit of fun and I'm learning a lot. But it's at this point the best step that I could take while we build the hospitality group, while we build the next concept. I think rushing into something else at this point is a mistake. We're having to get very serious about the next thing. I mean, you're going to go no matter what, right? I could
Friends and family, but
exactly. I could open a hot dog stand.
Listen, if you don't make me cry, and that friends and family,
Right.
you're not doing it right.
Correct. But
I'll be there as well.
it doesn't necessarily matter what we do, but it's about being as effective as humanly possible.
I would have
right?
gone to Kojin more often, but he never invited me, man.
Well, I
He'd
think
be
that's
like, "Oh, I went to Kojin last night." I was like, "What the fuck?"
I think that's a conversation that I shouldn't be privy to.
No,
That's
no.
between you.
You're here. You're here now. Huh?
Listen, you're gonna have to learn to deal with that.
It's
Apart from getting existential, let's talk about just food in general. So, in Miami, where do you like to eat, man?
this is a question I get all the time. And
Talk to me.
And I tell people Flanagan's.
I fucking love Flanagan's.
Like
The ribs and the fries?
the ribs, the fries, the tumbleweed onions.
Come on,
they have
man.
the best, worst Caesar salad ever. Like when you think of a Caesar salad
Yeah.
in Miami, you think of Flanagan's Caesar salad, and when you get it, it doesn't look the best.
When you have a
but it is.
nightmare and a dream about a Caesar salad, it's the Flanagan Caesar salad.
Flanagan's actually inspired the Cajun Caesar.
Seriously.
Yeah. Because I love that Caesar salad.
I've had it a million times. It's great.
But I would always think it's like, what if you picked up the Flanagan's that's in Coconut Grove, the one on 27th and Bird,
Right.
picked it up, just pulled it right out of the ground and dropped it in Kyoto, left it alone for a year and came back. What would that Caesar salad look like? And that's how we came up with the Cajun Caesar.
It's amazing.
But Flanagan's is just one of those places where like I know exactly what I'm getting, when I'm getting it, and how it's coming.
It's great.
And Sandwich in Little Havana is another amazing place. I love going there. I'm very easy to please when it comes to food.
Yeah.
If a friend ever invited me over for dinner and they made boxed Kraft mac and cheese, I'd probably come to tears, only because I didn't have to cook.
Right.
Like this is a serious thing that chefs deal with. Like I will eat anything anywhere all the time. So long as I don't have to be the one preparing it. I do that enough.
It brings you a different sense of pleasure.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had a simple sandwich out of a gas station that's been amazing.
Yeah.
Eating out in Miami, I will do anywhere at any time. I'm actually going tonight to Los Felix for the first time.
I've been there. I won't say anything.
I'm very excited. I just want to see what's going on.
Yeah.
I would humbly suggest that you try any items that they do with pork.
Perfect.
The items with pork are phenomenal.
Don't say anything, man. Just let them eat.
No,
bro.
man. No.
Just say, hey, I went there and I enjoyed it. It was very good.
Let them eat.
But
Do they still have a star?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Cool.
I mean, and that for me is where it's at. I don't necessarily always go for like, hey, this is the high end dining
Right.
experience.
But
Like,
if you do, though, if you do splurge, where would you go?
I mean, Itamai is mind blowing.
It's amazing.
Sushi by Yasu Tanaka.
Yeah.
In the
I don't
LA
like sitting
market.
outside, but Itamai was good.
Itamai is good.
Very good.
I hear they're changing some things that they're doing. I think they're going to omakase only.
They have a little pop up in 1-800 Lucky.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they do.
1-800 Lucky is another great place to go eat. You can't really decide, or you're with a large group and everyone wants their own thing, but you can still stay centralized. I'm trying to think. Been to Boyade. Amazing.
Boyade is so
experience.
fucking good.
Delicious.
Man.
I've never sat at a table at Boyade. I've only sat at the bar.
The bar.
And I
do it.
cannot recommend the bar enough.
It's fucking amazing. Boyade is so good.
Marigolds. I went there a couple weeks ago.
Mm.
Had a phenomenal time. Great experience. It just comes down to what you're in the mood for. I mean, Bangkok City on Bird Road.
I'm Bird. That's out. Yeah.
just in front of
I've seen that.
Lincoln's Beard. It's this tiny little hole in the wall restaurant, and arguably some of the best Thai food you'll get in Miami. I can't pick one particular place.
No, of course, that's impossible.
never.
Yeah. I think just go out there and explore things. And I mean, get out of the bigger neighborhoods, get out of Wynwood, get out of Midtown, try some local stuff. I will still argue to this day, the best Chinese food in Miami is on Bird and 84th. It is Con Chow. It's right next to Lucky Oriental Market. Mm-hmm. They do not mess around. And it has that like New York shitty Chinese restaurant vibe where like the wallpaper is falling off. Mm-hmm. It's the same 3 fish that have been in the tank since you were a kid.
Yeah. You've seen them grow.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, man, maybe we should set them free at this point.
I mean, you're connected though at that point. You have a bond.
Or eat them.
Or eat them. Something. There's someone in the corner reading a newspaper. There's children running around. It smells like feet.
If a Chinese restaurant doesn't smell like feet, I don't want nothing to do with it.
And this is all coming from a very, I mean this with a lot of love and respect.
If it doesn't smell like feet, I don't want to go.
Right. But Con Chow to me was one of those places where I grew up eating there. I lived in Westchester. I still live in Westchester. And when I think of like bomb Chinese food, I think of Con Chow. Now, if you want duck, you have to go to Tropical Chinese. They do arguably the best Peking duck in Miami.
Really?
It is fantastic. When I want Peking duck, Tropical Chinese is the move. They do the whole duck service.
A lot of places for you to check out.
Their scallion pancakes are incredible. Mm. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you for that. Now, speaking of the one place, because I know that you have this restaurant in mind for what you want to do in your future, how can we or anyone that's watching or listening that are fans of you or want to see this come to fruition, how can we stay in touch? How can we help? How can we support?
Wow. I mean, follow us on Instagram. I think I should be more up to date on this. We just changed our Instagram up a little bit.
No problem. Listen. We'll put it on the description below as well.
You got a lot going on.
Yeah, no.
You got a lot going on.
So we are now on Instagram as chefs_counter_. That will change once the next concept comes into fruition a little bit more, but start following us there. We'll always have that Instagram and it'll evolve. You can follow me personally at Pete Mederos on Instagram. I don't post often, but when I do post, it's intentful.
Meaningful.
Yeah, meaningful. There's intent behind it.
I got you.
I think our website's still up. You can subscribe there. Other than giving you my personal phone number, which Adrian has, I'm not going to say he abuses it. He does abuse it.
But he kind of does.
It's great. I love those.
It's my way of living.
I love those 2:00 in the afternoons. Hey, do you have an opening tonight? Yes. For you, I do. It's just how it works. That's what happens, friends and family.
You little cutie.
But no, I mean, any of our social medias, follow us there. We will keep everyone as up to date as we can.
Definitely look forward to that.
We're hoping to open something
now.
Soon.
Is there a message that you would like to tell the aspiring chefs that are listening, that are thinking, maybe I should just go ahead and try it, or anyone that's thinking about making that business? Is there anything that you want to tell them?
Don't be afraid to fail. Never be afraid to fail. I will always support people who have gone out and tried their own thing and have failed miserably.
Right.
Like nothing grows in the comfort zone. Ever. It won't happen. The minute you get comfortable, you should start looking for the next thing. Like the industry will never move forward. Dining in Miami will never move forward if people just get comfortable. That's what's happened in Miami for God knows how long. It's the time for that is over. Like keep pushing, keep progressing. And if you're waiting for the right time, it's not coming.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is never the right time to get married. It's never the right time to have a kid. Like life comes at you fast.
To start a podcast?
No, yeah, exactly. Just go for it.
Yeah.
Like you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. The experience that you got. I mean, how many episodes have you guys filmed so far?
Good amount. They're going to be coming out every week, every Monday.
But you see what I'm saying? Like that's so valuable. Right. The time that you spent in setting up the space. I mean, you told me to come over to the studio. This is brilliant.
Thank you.
I've been wanting to start a podcast for the longest time, and my concept is probably a little bit wonky. I want to interview anyone and everyone that has to do with the industry, but we're both getting tattooed while doing it because how much more intimate can that be? Imagine being interviewed when someone's just drilling into your back for a tattoo.
That's amazing.
I will not be a guest in your show.
I'd be a guest.
You can.
We can apply temporary tattoos for you, but
I'd be a guest. That sounds cool.
but like, you know, I am closer to opening 6 restaurants than I am to starting that podcast at this point. But the value that you gain from just going out and doing something and applying as much time as you can to it as humanly possible, nothing can replace that. And I you know, this is something that I see on Instagram all the time, and I can't agree with it more. Whether it's 15 minutes or 15 hours, whatever amount of time I get to stop everything else and just create, those are the best days.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise you're just going through the motions, and then what's the point? Truthfully.
You know, I sitting here and talking with you and hearing about your mission and your goals and your objectives kind of solidifies to me what I think of as like a modern chef. Okay. Because like the whole like Emeril Lagasse, the whole like rock star chef thing that started back in the day, I get it, bro. It's cool.
It's cool.
It shed a light on the industry, and for better or worse, it made people pay attention.
Right.
So I love it. But for me now, the idea of a modern chef is somebody who, in general, I love, because I like somebody who, if you were sitting here and I didn't know that you worked in the industry, dude, you're just a cool guy. I'd have a beer with you and I would just talk shit with you.
Yeah.
Which is great, because to me that means that, I mean, you're a maniac, which you have to be, right? And me, in terms of like loving food, and I'm obsessed with it, right? That's all that matters to me. So when I get that vibe from somebody else that they take their craft seriously, they take their work seriously, but they're okay with just not taking everything else too seriously, in the sense where, let me shut off for a second. Let me just be myself. Let me just have a drink. Let me just talk to people. Let me just chill. Dude, tons of props to you.
I mean, it's funny that you say that. I think you've heard me say this at Cogent. We take the food very seriously, but nothing else.
I love it.
Right? Like, I think something that's going to change drastically, and it's already changing, it's this white tablecloth, glove service style of fine dining. Like, that's great. Some people love it. Some people live for it. There's a time and a place for it. I definitely want that every now and then. But I also want to be served by like a human being.
Right.
You know, someone that has a personality and opinions and views, whether I agree with
And a
them
smile.
or not. Like,
And a smile, you said?
and a smile. But like,
Optional.
I want to be served by people, right? Not by
A robot.
a robot, right? I want that. I genuinely, if I ask you to change a spirit in a cocktail, I think it's perfectly okay for you to look at me and be like, hey, don't be an ass. It's made this way.
Right.
Let me serve it to you this way. If you don't like it, we'll
Right.
change it.
That's what I say to people all the time.
And I
Kind
think
of.
that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the more personable you make an experience, the more value someone's going to walk away from it with.
It's amazing.
I made fun of you when you cried. I mean, I didn't
Just fun.
I didn't. I wasn't like, "Oh, you're being a pussy. Why are you crying?" I was like, "Dude, are you really crying right now?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Do you need a hug?"
But you did.
And I came around and hugged
But you did. Chef came around. He took off his hat.
Yeah.
He took off his apron on. What is this guy doing?
He's
gave
getting
me a
ready to
hug.
throw the fuck down.
I threw down.
I said to him, based on, so you can see that I'm being honest about how I feel about you as a person, even with our limited like interaction. I said to him, you strike me as the kind of chef. Obviously, in your intimate restaurant at Kojin, it was relatively simple to go around the counter and interact with him. But I said that even if you had worked in a restaurant that was fucking 5,000 square feet, you seem like the kind of person that a server would have gone into the kitchen. Chef, dude at fucking pretty boy at table 100 is crying, bro, because he just had the dish. You seem to me like the kind of person to be like, point him out to me. I'm going over there right now.
Yeah.
Or you would leave the kitchen and
100%.
go talk to him.
100%.
It's amazing.
It's part of the experience.
It is 100% part of the experience. And I mean, that truthfully makes my job harder, right? Because then it's a little bit more difficult to walk away from certain projects and have personal time and time with family away from the restaurant. But
Thank you, Adrian, making his job harder, bro.
no. But that's also what this is about. And I mean, you know, this is something that my wife and I discuss all the time. I would love to spend a lot more time with my son.
Right.
He's going to be a year old in a couple of months. I mean, in less than 2 months, actually. But one day, my goal is for him to realize why I worked so hard. And when you're very passionate about something and something is that meaningful to you, that it's okay to make certain sacrifices. I remember being a kid and my mom working insane hours, and all the other kids' parents were like, well, it's a shame that your mom works this hard and you don't get to spend as much time with your mom. My mom is my best friend. And like, that may not be the cool thing to say.
I think it's very cool.
But like, I talk to my mom every day. My wife talks to my mom every day. My mom is a huge part of my life. And never have I thought to myself like, oh, well, I wish that she had spent more time with me than she did at work. Without the sacrifices she made, I wouldn't be in the position I am now. And the appreciation that I have for her doing that and making those sacrifices brings me much closer to her. And I hope to have the same relationship with my son. I hope that one day he realizes like, yeah, you know, dad couldn't tuck me in every night when I was a kid, but he was out there building something that I can now be a part of, or I can now appreciate, right?
And be proud of, yeah.
And that for me is huge, you know, not just financially taking care of our son, but inspiring our son to do whatever he wants and be the best at it. I truly don't care if he wants to be a plumber, a pharmacist, a chef, a doctor, an astronaut. It doesn't matter to me. As long as he approaches whatever his passion is, fully giving himself to it, then I will be proud, right? Because that's what I'm doing, and that's what my wife does, and that's what the people around us do. We create these opportunities in these spaces where it's okay to be 100% vulnerable and give yourself to the thing that you're passionate about. Otherwise, what's the point?
I think you gave a beautiful message there to finish it up.
Amen,
So I think
brother. I don't know what
wanna
we can
wrap
say
that
after
up.
that.
Chef, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I hope that this episode inspire you to understand that all it takes is just for you to take action. It's for you to just say, you know what, I'm going to do it and try it. And if I fail, that's fine. I will continue to keep doing it. No matter what it does, it's just, you got to take action. Sometimes we're so afraid of failure. We're so afraid of we are our own worst enemy. And all you need to do is just trust yourself, go at it, find some people that are as passionate as you, and just go on this journey yourself. And no matter what, at the other end, you're going to end up a better person. So,
I mean,
Chef,
if I may, failure
Please.
is your best friend.
there you go.
Yeah.
You will never learn as well as you could until you fail, right? It's kind of like riding a horse. If you're doing it for the first time and you're comfortable, you're probably doing it wrong,
Right.
right? You need to go out there and just try. It is perfectly okay to fail. I mean, here's an example. My wife has a bachelor's degree from the CIA. Since starting next week, she is working on her master's. She has a 3-year gap in her education now. But in those 3 years, we started a business, got married, had a family, right? That experience across those 3 years is going to add so much value to her going into this master's program and in anything else she does. You know, she could have just been a perpetual student, but without the opportunity to go out there and work on something and have the opportunity to fail, where would she be now? Would it be a different place? Would she be as passionate? Would these things mean as much to her as they do now? It's a difficult question to answer, and thankfully we don't have to. We took the risk. We went out there, we did the thing, and we're continuing to do that every single day.
Yeah, and trust, this is not my personal first attempt at a business, and I imagine it's not yours too. So
Just
let
do
us
the
kn-
thing. Do the thing.
Do the
bro.
thing. So let us know in the comments below how many times you tried a business venture of yourself, and how many times you failed, and how you keep going, or how many times it took for you to land the business that you have your own. So that everybody else who reads the comments says, you know what, if they tried it 16 times, that guy tried it 8 times, you know, then maybe I shouldn't bust my ass so much because I tried it twice and haven't made it so far. So once more, thank you for joining us, Chef.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, that's our show. Thank you for listening.
Stop making meaningless changes in your cocktails. But don't forget to tip.
And we look forward to hosting you again real soon.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good night.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe.